Welcome to the AG45 Soul Aligned Strategy Podcast, where business meets purpose, growth feels good, and results meet enjoyment. Hosted by Katherine Breuss, CEO and founder of AG45, this show is built on 30 years of hands-on experience across 4 countries, 3 businesses, and 1 incredible life raising 4 children. Katherine brings a rare whole-person perspective to business, strategy, and leadership. This podcast is for business owners ready to stop spinning, start aligning, and build a business that delivers real value while creating a life that actually feels like yours. At the end of the day, you are the engine behind it all. And when you're clear and aligned, everything moves with purpose. It starts with you. Let's dive in.
Welcome, Nick, to the Soul Aligned podcast. Everyone, I'd like to introduce Nick Lundbohm from ChiroWay. I'm going to pass it over to him, though, and I'm going to let Nick share with you who he is and his business before we get started.
All right. Well, good morning, Katherine. Thank you. My name is Dr. Nick Lundbohm. I'm a chiropractor with ChiroWay Chiropractic in Menomonee Falls, Wisconsin. I have been a chiropractor for just over 20 years now, and had decided to finally be able to open my own small business about 5 years ago after working for numerous other doctors in different ways and in many different chiropractic offices, and found ChiroWay through a few connections from one, my brother, and 2, a few other connections through business, and found that ChiroWay was a very good model for chiropractic for me to be able to run my small business by myself. ChiroWay is a up-and-coming franchise of locations that allow convenience and affordability of chiropractic care to allow people to come in more often to receive the chiropractic care long-term rather than utilize chiropractic care as a short-term Band-Aid solution. So ChiroWay has added that convenience and affordability to make chiropractic more part of your life rather than just something you seek out when you need it.
I love that. And as we were talking earlier, I actually studied chiropractic in Australia because I have a huge love for the human body, but also, our spine is the communication system. So I highly support chiropractic care. I've seen the difference it has made, not only in my own life, my children's, my mother's, back in the 80s when, chiropractors back then were considered like, witch doctors.
Yep.
And
discriminated against, exactly, all of those things.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that you had the more the spine surgeons. They wanted to put my mom under the knife, and she met this amazing chiropractor, and she ended up going that direction, and she is so thankful for it. So
Excellent.
yeah, so I have a huge love of chiropractors, but as we were also saying, not all of them are created equal. So Nick, we are talking about soul lined, and the way that we see soul lined is, it's really understanding who you are and what is important to you, and then aligning that to your life and or, because we're talking to business owners, your business, where most of us spend the majority of our time.
Correct.
So for you, what do you see is being soul aligned, and what impact does that have for you and your business?
Well, a big part of, I would say, that with my business is, and it also ties right back into why I ended up with a franchise with ChiroWay, is being able to spend a lot of time, the dedicated time that you need to spend opening and running your business, but at the same time, allowing you to have that life that will balance you away from your business, such as your family, such as your children, your hobbies, whatever it is that you have, that is going to be a unique aspect for everyone. But I feel that as a business owner, that balance needs to be there, because you can't spend every waking hour on your business, no matter how much of a passion it is for you, without having the mental wellness yourself of being able to be away from your business. And whether that is having someone else with you to support your business, to run your business for you, to be able to just step away and have your business run itself, whatever that would be, I think that is that would fit a big purpose in your soul aligned aspect of balance that needs to be part of your life when you are running a business.
Yeah, and it's great speaking with someone like yourself who is about, health and wellness. And I think for many of us, business owners, and even not business owners, but business owners in particular, we usually put ourselves last. I see
Correct.
it from a sense of taking care of yourself physically, mentally, but also financially as well.
Mhm.
I see a lot of business owners pay themselves last. So from a health and wellness perspective, what would you recommend in terms of how a business owner should look after themselves to ensure that then they can look after their business and their family and everyone else?
Well, exactly. And I think you hit on most of it is just being able to be away from your business. I of course am not going to say this in a biased manner, but I firmly believe business owners would benefit from being a chiropractic patient, mainly from being able to balance that natural innate ability for their body to respond to stress and heal and strengthen and be in a powerful position to benefit themselves. It is something that most people don't realize that they're missing until they actually add it into their life. Much like exercise, much like proper nutrition and diet, much like getting enough sleep. Those are all pillars that I emphasize with all of my clients. But adding that regularity of getting adjusted so that your spine is working the way it's supposed to, which supports your nervous system, which supports the entire body. If that is not functioning at 100%, you cannot function at 100%. That is not a chiropractic, religion. That is science.
Mm.
And that is a science-based philosophy that, you know, I can, and I don't like to use the word debate because it's not a debate. It's how the body works. And so I think a big part of health and wellness, from my perspective, is making sure people are, seeing some kind of chiropractic service, but then at the same time, getting their proper exercise, getting their proper sleep at night, being hydrated is a huge one that people mostly overlook, and getting some form of exercise, whether it's, whatever it is that you like to do. So,
Oh, it's interesting, the hydration piece. When I lived in Australia, I was pretty good at it because it was warmer and we were
sure.
outdoors a lot and whatnot. And since moving here, gosh, I mean, I'll go through like the majority of the day and it'll be towards the end and I'll sit and go, oh my gosh, I've only had like this amount of water, and I
Very much so.
completely forget. And to your point, it really does make an impact. I can see how differently my system functions. Okay, so a lot of people, and because yes, I do love chiropractic, so I'm going to go a little bit more into this from a health perspective. Um, Most people, I think, when they think of chiropractors or chiropractic care, they think, oh, you're just going to crack my back. And it's just if my back is out of whack or something like that, that's why I would go to you. But I know that it's a lot more than that. So, I love that you brought up the neurology and, because the spine it's the communication to
Correct.
everything. So,
Correct.
what in terms of, you mentioned stress, how would chiropractic care help someone with regards to stress?
Okay. So stress is actually threefold. Everybody knows the word stress when we're talking about emotional stress. That is, how is your life at home? How is your life at work? What, outside stressors are you dealing with 24/7? That is emotional stress. However, people fail to realize that, there are two other versions of stress, that is physical stress and there's chemical stress. Physical stress is actually what you physically put your body through every day. Does your job require a lot of sitting? Does your job require a lot of repetitive motion? Does your job require a lot of standing, working? I have a lot of hairdressers that are clients of mine. That physical stress of your body is going to physically affect your body. And you can even call exercise physical stress. If you are doing regular exercise as you're supposed to, that is a good thing. But what does exercise do to your body? It's a question I ask all my clients that come in that actually do a little bit of exercise. They're like, well, I take good care of myself. I exercise. Okay, what does exercise do to you? What is the point of exercise? It breaks down your muscles. It shows you that you are weak. In order to have proper exercise, you are wearing yourself out. You're doing a lot of lifting. You are running. You are doing yoga. You are stretching muscles beyond what they are currently capable of doing, because that breaks down the muscle tissue, tells your body that hey, we are slightly weak. We must heal this and become stronger. Whether it is a stronger muscle, whether it is stretching the muscle, whether it is increasing your lung capacity by doing aerobic exercise, you are breaking down your body. So your body must heal to get you back to a better position. That requires utilizing calories. That requires, building your body up. So it is a stress on your body to have to do that while at the same time doing your body's normal functions. And then to go all the way back to what we were saying, another version of stress that's chemical stress. That is what you take into your body. It is what you put onto your body. It's what you consume. It's what you use to wash your hair. It's what you are exposed to with every day as far as your environment, levels of pollution, how much inside you are, whether you are breathing in allergens on a daily basis that your body must combat with, whether you are constantly exposed to pathogens in your job. Are you a nurse? Are you a other healthcare practitioner that sees a lot of people? How well is your immune system functioning? Those are all chemical reactions happening in your body 24/7, 365. You add up your physical stress, your chemical stress, and your emotional stress. Your unique stress.
That's a lot of stress.
It's a lot of stress. And when you are dealing with that 24/7, 365, eventually your body is not going to have the capacity to overcome everything on a daily basis. And you start running at what we call a deficit. The human body is a self-regulating, self-healing organism. It knows how to be healthy. And before I get onto too long of a, ramble of this, because it's something I can talk about for forever and ever. So if you have anything, feel free to jump in before I go too long into my, new client orientation, where I try and explain to people that when you have all that stress every day, your body has to react, it has to adapt and overcome. You know, one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies is Heartbreak Ridge, and I'm kind of dating myself. And he's always talking about how the Marines are one of the greatest branches in the history of the world of warfare, because Marines adapt, overcome, and succeed. That is exactly what your body does. It tries to adapt, it overcomes what you are dealing with, and it succeeds by healing.
Mm.
The problem is when you build up too much tension in the back, in the muscles, in whatever it is that you're dealing with, and subluxation occurs. The definition of subluxation is a vertebrae that is not working through its normal range of motion the way it should be. And that is going to go back to the neurology that you were talking about, impingement of the nervous system. And when you are pinching on the nervous system, it's not working as well as it can be, because your body then has to heal that as well. And you are just running at a deficit of trying to get back to that adaptation point of normal health and well-being.
Yeah. And so I see that as when your body has stress,
Hmm.
got your kind of your mental stress, your emotional stress, you've got your physical stress.
Correct.
And, to me, it's like it's a fog then you're living in. So
Hmm.
if you have a mental lack of clarity, you are making decisions in a fog. Then, if you add on top of that, you've got the physical stress, whether that's chemical, whether it is physical, and then that it is in itself a fog. And so, again, decisions aren't necessarily as clear because messaging and all of that isn't working as well. And
Correct.
so, you know, I say that we are the engine behind what we do, and we are. And so, you know, I do see taking care of your physical body being soul aligned as well, because it's not just your mental clarity and your mental understanding of who you are and what you want. We are, our body are the houses we live in. And
Correct.
so if that house isn't clean and clear, that's just going to add a whole nother layer of fog.
Correct. And so again, it goes all the way back to taking care of yourself. And as business owners, you already touched on that. It is one of the last things that most people consider because their business and their family comes first, and they tend to come later on. So the entire point of adding chiropractic into your life is to make that simpler.
Mhm.
Because when you have a properly functioning nervous system, everything else is easier. Your exercise is easier. Your mental clarity to make those decisions is clearer. The intake of your chemical input, your nutrition, everything else is something that functions better. Your body processes that stuff better. So it all goes back to your nervous system, the key communication system in your body, the thing that runs everything. And if you're not taking care of your immune or your nervous system, your own innate intelligence is going to be depressed,
Mm.
which is going to depress the rest of your life.
I love that you said your innate intelligence, but you've just hit it. You've just hit it on the head. And we all have that innate intelligence, and it's there. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's there because it can feel it's through the fog. It's the
Exactly.
fog of lack of clarity, whether that's through our body, through our mind, emotions. And so the more clarity we have, then the easier it is to know what it is we want, where we want to go, and then to be able to align to it.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, you will love the fact probably that we use the word align because, chiropractic is all about
Chiropractic,
alignment.
exactly. It's a solid analogy.
It is. And I could sit and talk about, I really could. I could sit and talk about chiropractic work all day long because um, it is phenomenal, and what can actually occur when you do go to a qualified and experienced chiropractor. The changes not only physically in your body but also mentally can shift and change. Which, like I said earlier, I think I need to come and see you because
Correct.
I don't do it as much as I used to.
Hmm.
And that, shame on me, that is
Yep.
like a time aspect. Um,
Yep.
so I'm at fault. I'm at fault as well. Sometimes I'm not always putting my mask on. You know how they say, like on the airplane, you put your mask on first and then you help
It
others.
is. It is. It is. And that's a wonderful analogy too, is that you do need to be able to take care of yourself in order to help others.
Mhm.
And whether it's because you're a business owner, whether it's you're a family, family person taking the primary role in your family, you still need to take care of yourself in order to take care of others. And that aspect of being aligned is something that I found with ChiroWay and why I have a ChiroWay franchise, because they do allow you to take care of yourself in order to become a better practitioner to then take care of your clients.
Yeah, because imagine, I mean, it's so obvious when we say it out loud and we're talking about it. Like, okay, if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to show up as well for others and take care of others. I mean, it sounds so obvious, you know, when we see it. And yet, though, time and time again, we don't do that. You know, we put ourselves last, and and it does no one any good. And you've Nick, do you have a family?
I do.
Yeah, so as parents as well, you know, we can put everybody else first, and then we're just so run down. Just like honestly, I have to say on the weekend, by the end of it, I was so run down and I was putting everyone else first. And I could feel it within myself. And I just wasn't showing up. I wasn't as present with my children. I was a little bit snippy. And I literally was like, okay, stop, pause, what's happening? And I was so in my head, and you know, had a tornado of thought, which took me to a completely different place that I didn't necessarily want to go in that moment. And I wasn't taking care of myself. And so I literally had to, you know, at least I was smart enough to say pause before, you know, I became really grumpy.
Correct.
Now, what would you, I'm going to shift gears just a moment. And as a business owner, so you've been in business, you said 5 years.
As a business owner, I've had my office for 5 years, correct.
What has been the biggest challenge for you as a business owner?
I mean, as a business owner, you know, I think it's unique to running a chiropractic business. I guess, you know, you can probably talk to anybody that's a business owner and they'll say the same thing. Their business is unique. Um, when it comes to running a chiropractic office, there is I hate to use the word stigma, but just making yourself known
Hmm.
to the general public of where you are, who you are, and what you are. And and I think that was one of the more difficult things for me to learn because I needed to be different. I needed to uh, get out there and let people know where they could find me and why they'd want to find me compared to somebody else. Because even though not a lot of people, as far as if you took the percentage of the, you know, American population that regularly see a chiropractor, we're talking probably 10 to 15% based on a lot of estimates. To to have that population as there's a lot of my key, you know, potential clients. There's a lot of chiropractors in a general given area for them to choose from.
Hmm.
So making yourself that unique, you know, anybody that started a business, there's always that unique selling point. What is your unique selling point so that people can, you know, decide to utilize your business or services? I think that was kind of one of the initial challenges that I faced was, you know, getting that message out there of how we are different, why we are different from a traditional insurance-based chiropractic office.
That's a really, I'm glad you brought it up because, yeah, you're right. Every business, well, I would say 99.9% of businesses have to ask themselves what is unique about us, the USP, unique selling
Hmm.
point. Um, and this is where I would, you know, when we work with businesses is to first look at themselves and go, well, who are you? Like, who are
Hmm.
you? And then how does that align to the business? And then who is that business? And integrating that because that's who then you attract. Um, and there's a lack of resistance there when it's more of wearing someone else's model, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yep,
Um,
definitely.
so what would be one, if you had a piece of advice, one piece of advice for another business owner, because it can feel lonely as a business owner, you know, we all have struggles of varying sorts. Um, what would be your one piece of advice to other business owners that may be struggling or maybe not sure how to do something? What was key for you?
I mean, it's something that is, you know, again, from a business owner aspect, it talks with about everybody talks about the first 5 years in business.
Mm.
And I have a unique position of, yes, I've been in business for 5 years, but really, do the first 2 years of my business even count? Because
So, so
when I
when did you
started,
start? Yeah, so tell me about when you started your business.
so if anybody can do math in their head, and I'm sure everybody loves this, my official opening date of business was April 13th of 2020 because I signed a lease, a 5-year lease in January of 2020. In June of 2019 is when I decided to branch away from being an associate doctor that I had worked at for, a number of years for other doctors, and decided that I finally had the ability to open my own office, and had the conversation with my wife to take that step. Met with the franchise or the franchise of ChiroWay and signed my franchise agreement and got support to open my new business. And January of 2020, we signed a lease and began a build out and started planning a grand opening. And that grand opening was scheduled for the middle of March of 2020. And as that date approached, more and more problems in the COVID world arose, and the stay-at-home orders began, closing of all non-essential businesses, and stay away from people and don't go into work unless you absolutely have to. And as a business that had not opened but was supposed to open, what were we supposed to do?
So were you considered essential or no?
We are chiropractors in the state of Wisconsin, considered essential business. We are, due to our license, labeled as primary care physicians through the state of Wisconsin. So, being a brand new business, we chose to pause our opening to see what was happening and what was going to happen in the world at the time, because there was just a lot of uncertainty. People really just didn't know. There were some obvious fiery debates between many, many people, but it just was not, going to my office and opening at, March 12th just didn't seem like the right idea. Now, when we got into April, it seemed like, well, not a lot is going to change, because in my situation, I may have the choice of not opening, but I didn't have the choice of not paying my rent,
Yeah.
because I signed a 5-year lease 2 months before that. And at that time, there was no support in place for small businesses that hadn't opened or small businesses that didn't exist.
That's tough. I can't.
So there was the decision of, well, I am an essential business. We can open. And I did have half a dozen people that were like, hey, we don't care about COVID. We don't care about, not that they don't care about COVID, but
Yeah.
COVID wasn't going to scare them away from coming into my office, because they understood the need for chiropractic care and how it can improve your immune system and improve your position of handling COVID. That's a whole nother discussion we can have for 45 minutes, probably, of how the immune system and chiropractic care can support your body's ability to fight off viruses and germs and flu and COVID. So I had enough clients to begin to get things open, because I had a landlord that needed his rent money just as much as anybody else. I didn't look at that as a bad thing from his perspective, because he needed his rent money as well to run his businesses. And I had to pay rent, so I needed a source of income to support me. So it was, let's get open and let's see what we can happen to do.
So how did you, what was key to getting through that phase mentally and emotionally? Because I can imagine the toll that probably took.
It was, and I think a big part of it was having some support from outside your business, whether it is your family, whether it is friends. ChiroWay is a franchise, so I did have franchise support. It was tough to make that support work because it was another unique situation that nobody had dealt with before, which is how do we respond to COVID and how do we make our protocols COVID safe based on a lot of these requirements that were placed on businesses that we had never had to deal with before. So how do we make those work for us and stay compliant, even though it's a lot of things that we disagree with? But whether you disagree with them or not, you can't run a business in defiance of laws, regulations that come down to run your business. So we had to find ways to make our business COVID compliant. I'm using my air quotes to be able to be open and stay open. So that was a bit of a challenge, but the support of having other business owners in your group that were trying to do the same thing is a big thing. So, we touched on earlier about having business connections, having networking connections. I think a lot of people have a stigma of having business connections with people that do the same business you do. And I think that is something that is more key for a business owner than people realize, is that you're not in competition with other business owners that do the same thing as you if you find ways to support them.
Yeah. Oh, I love
Because they
that.
will in turn support you.
Yeah.
So I think having fellow people that do the same thing in your support network is a very big thing.
I love that. And one of our, we've got this 5A model, and the fourth A is advocates, or advocate. So you advocate for yourself, you advocate for others, and you find the right advocates for you, the ones that elevate you, not hold you back and make you smaller.
Correct.
So Nick, thank you for sharing that story. And, I'm glad that your business is thriving 5 years later.
I've always, that's one thing that I always have to keep telling myself too, is that, everybody always has that old rule of thumb that the first 5 years of business is the most difficult, and a lot of businesses fail before they reach five years of operations. And I can still look at my past and present and wonder why I'm maybe not as successful as I would like to be after 5 years. But I always have to constantly remind myself that my first 2 years were definitely COVID years that are very difficult to count as official years in business. And so I still kind of tell myself I'm really probably only in year 3 of operating a business that needs 5 to 6 years of good growth to be a successful chiropractic business.
Nice. I love it. I love it. And I will say, the work that you do, chiropractic work, is incredibly impactful, and communities need it. And so that, hats off to you. I wish I had
Thank you.
finished my degree. I did it out of more of curiosity and love, and studied undergrad of medicine with chiropractic. And then COVID hit, so I couldn't do
Yep.
I couldn't finish it. I was close, but I love it, and it is a really honorable profession. And so I thank you for that.
Yes.
And I will be coming to see you because you are
Excellent.
closer than Brookfield for me as well.
That is the convenient location as far as having a ChiroWay office set up as well. So it is something that is easy for people to stop in.
Well, Nick, it has been a real pleasure. I really appreciate your time, sharing about you and your business and what Soul Aligned means to you, and wish you all the best in your business. And I will be coming to see you.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Katherine. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks for joining us on the AG45 Soul Aligned Strategy podcast. If you're ready to align your soul with your business, take back your time, and grow with intention, we'd love to connect. Visit accelerategrowth45.com to schedule a call, apply to be a guest, or take the next step toward building a soul-aligned business. At AG45, we believe when business meets value, wealth meets legacy, and time meets freedom, the journey becomes truly enjoyable. Until next time, stay aligned, stay inspired, and keep building your legacy.